Someday, I'll finish writing something. Wow, I wrote this crap? So, Killjoys. From what I understand, this kind of became one of the more taboo topics of the Countdown community. Well, stuff like that has never stopped me before. Besides, whether that statement is true or not, I'd much rather tackle the less liked themes first to see where I could improve as I try to find my own style as a content creator. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on what a Killjoy is because, well, just say the word out loud. I will say, however, that I'm not counting any glitches or bugs because, while yes, they can greatly affect your time with a game, I'm more looking at the moments that were intentional in the story and gameplay. This also means I won't be including any third-party influences, so no toxic fandoms. Of course, I'm not going to point any fingers here, Overwatch. So, with all that out of the way, it's time to go galactic. No, that doesn't feel right on a negative list. Ooh, is it time for me to show off my massive bias towards Pandoras Tower again? Okay, I think I'm good. Yeah, I'll admit it, the scenes where Elena's eating beast flesh makes me sick in the stomach, and how often does this happen? After every tower. Maybe more if you need to refill that timer. What doesn't help is that you can hear her choking and gagging from just how disgusting it is. And yeah, sure, she gets used to it eventually, but now it's just kinda creepy. Could this really be considered a Killjoy? I'll admit I may be stretching this out a little, but considering I've had a few times where I've had to stop in order to save my cookies, I think we can make an exception here. What's that? You can skip the cutscene? Well, yeah, but I've seen all the cutscenes on my first playthrough. Reluctantly, might I add. So telling me to just skip and forget about it would be like if I walked up to my brother and told him not to think about the time I beat him up for stealing my pudding. Now he's been reminded of petty childhood quarrels, and I need to lie down again. So, I like to play my games in a specific way. For platformers, I like to try and 100% the game as fast as I can. Since they're normally easy and don't have any complex stories, I have no problem with using a guide when I start having trouble. And for those of you saying using a guide discredits you as a gamer, I don't care. My backlog's already the size of Groudon, I'd like to put a dent in it somewhere. But you know what tends to slow that down? Autoscrollers. Real talk here, who actually likes auto-scrolling levels? That polls from over 3 years ago show me something relevant. But before you do that, play for your favorite 2D platformer and tell me what you thought of that forced scrolling because I'm 99% sure there's at least one level like this. Even your precious Shovel Knight is guilty of this trope. Aw, Sonic, you too! The reason why I hate this concept of a level is because it wastes my time. Not only do I have to go through the level at a fixed pace, but if I die halfway into it, I have to either go back to the beginning or an earlier checkpoint, continuing at the same pace, wasting even more of my time. Special mention goes to the Yoshi's Island games, where even the auto-scrolling levels are filled with collectibles needed for 100% completion. Man, 11-year-old me would have gone insane if he played that game. Good old Legend of Dark Witch. It's a pretty good game. All of the bosses telegraph their attacks rather well, so 9 times out of 10 it's your own fault for getting hit. I say 9 times out of 10 because the bosses are also a little trial and error heavy. But there's one boss in this game that frustrates me to no end. The final boss of Riva's story, Zizu. First off, she's faced after a boss rush, meaning if there's one particular boss you have trouble with, it's likely you may be fighting her with your health at less than full. Hi Clincy, I almost didn't see you there. The first phase isn't too bad, it's actually incredibly predictable. It's the second phase where things get hectic. At this point, you have to decide whether you want to use the boss's weaknesses to negate her attacks, or save your magical energy to gain an extra hit, because either way, those magic butterflies are what's going to save your skin. But the hardest part of this fight for me is where she uses Dia missiles and Bound Rain at the same time, both of which can't be negated, making it so you have to dodge the missiles that surround you while needing to keep an eye on the rain that bounces around the screen. Oh, and the best part? Riva's playstyle is about getting up close and personal unless her attacks are upgraded. Have fun, guys!
やれやれ。じゃあちょっとだけ遊んであげようか。
Medal of Honor Frontline is one of the better World War II shooters in my honest opinion. The environments of each mission are diverse enough to stand out from each other, and the game felt like a decent enough challenge without any BS difficulty spikes. It's things like that that help keep even a basic FPS interesting. So it's too bad that Derailed is only notable for being so bland and difficult. The title of the game says it all. You're on the front lines, and in the mission Derailed, you're fighting through the train yards of the German city of Friedrichsroda, sabotaging the fuel tanks, and by sabotage I mean blow to Kingdom Come. Then eventually you'll find a way to get to the Gotha jet production airfield. Sounds simple, right? Of course not! It's a solo mission in Nazi Germany! While the start is as linear as a train track, there's still some bunkers on the side and soldiers hiding in the trains waiting to ambush you. And when you get into the town, that's a whole other story. Because of the huge area filled with hiding spots, you might miss a soldier or two and not notice till they start shouting or fill you with lead. And to top it all off, some of the soldiers have Panzerschrecks that can hit you while you're completely stationary on a slow-moving train engine. Now, I wouldn't have such a problem with this level if it wasn't so long. I know it's supposed to be hard. It's near the end of the game, and you're on their home turf. But Medal of Honor Frontline has no checkpoints. You die, and you have to start the whole level again. All 15 minutes of it. Well, at least you get to hear the score composed by Michael Giacchino as you continue dying.
Ah, it's crazy time!
Icarus Uprising. I love this game so much, I just have to marathon through it every time I choose to pick it up. The gameplay is surprisingly fun and the characters are great. Seriously, I can't remember the last time I played a game where the cast and humor worked so well with each other. But here's the thing. Almost none of that is present in Chapter 17, The Arm Brain. The first half is actually okay, it's just like any other flying stage. As for the land battle, what land? You're reduced to a single platform being pulled by Centurion strong arms. Did I mention these Centurions can also die? This section is all about taking out the arm as fast as you can so the Centurion strong arms don't get hurt, because if all the Centurions die, you're finished. And what's your reward for making it to the end? One of the lesser bosses of the game. Unless you brought something with long range like a staff, you have to wait until you're close enough to the shield generators to be able to hit them while dodging Pyron's attacks. And one of these attacks can only be dodged by using the jump pad in the middle of the platform. The problem is that the fire rain is very inconsistent with how it attacks, sometimes striking immediately after it appears, or lingering around a bit meaning you're likely to get hit after your jump, or waiting for too long because you don't know when it's going to close in. You know, come to think of it, this is basically a 3D auto-scroller with an escort mission thrown in halfway through. Ugh. Things like this are why I'm a grumpy old man now.
It's brain frying time!
What are you doing?
Good evening, everybody. It's time for me to once again pull something out of my hat full of games that I'll likely never shut up about in my coming days as a countdown maker. What can I say? I play favorites. Asora's Wrath is a little weird with how it handles its later episodes. After completing episode 18, you'll get a message saying you'll have to beat the hidden episode in order to get the true ending. So after unlocking this hidden mission, you're greeted with the true episode 18. Which is the exact same episode. Okay, but why though? Trust me, I wish I was exaggerating here. It's the exact same level. Same shooting sections, same QuickTime events, same boss fight. The only difference in this episode is the 5 minutes of added cutscenes at the very end. How long was this level again? Not fooling me for a second. I really don't have much to say about this because it really is just a repeat of the previous level. Some of you might think that this shouldn't be on the list since it's an optional level, but I'd argue that promising the player of a quote-unquote true ending only to give you more of the same is a pretty big offense. It absolutely kills the momentum of the original climax, and for what? A to-be-continued teaser for the actual final episodes. Thanks for playing our game. Please buy our $6 DLC. If you were to ask me, one Fallout fan to another, how I feel about Fallout 4, I'd tell you it's a good game. It's quite different from the previous titles, but still an entertaining game. It had some terrible DLC, but it's also had some really good ones. Take Far Harbor, for example. What starts as a missing persons case sends you to a large, almost barren island with fish as big as bears and shrimp the size of Deathclaws. Still not as scary as actual Deathclaws, though. Oh, how'd I get on the ship? There's also a tense conflict between the island's main factions considering the radioactive fog, with one faction being on the fence between spreading the fog and just letting the Far Harbor citizens live their lives. See, that's the Fallout stuff I signed up for. What I didn't sign up for was frickin' tower defense! Allow me to summarize this quest the best I can. Bear with me here. Dima is the leader of a synth refuge who wants to solve the Far Harbor dispute peacefully, but he can't store large amounts of memory, which is why he tasks you to retrieve his earlier memories to find a solution. But rather than just view the terminal and be done with it, the developers decided they wanted you to go through simulations similar to the Memory Den from the main game or Tranquility Lane from Fallout 3, yet still wanted it to be unique enough to stand out from those two. So what did they do to make it more unique? Implement the settlement system. Look, say what you will about the settlement system, at least it did what it was supposed to. You could build your settlements the way you wanted, and outside of a few minor exceptions, it was never mandatory for story progression. But this feels like it was just thrown in because the dev team didn't meet their quota for settlement-related content in Far Harbor. Alright, so we have some blocks the player can use to build a bridge and guide the termites to the goal. Yes, but if we're using the settlement system, then we need to give the player a reason to build some type of defenses. Well, we could add some security drones that will attack the bugs unless the player's turrets take them out. That's not a bad idea, but what more could we add to make these sections feel less mediocre? I've got it! Firewall puzzles! And yet somehow, with all that, it still feels painfully bare bones, almost like it was made by someone who just learned how to use the creation kit. And you have to complete 3 of these to continue with the Far Harbor story. But wait, there's 5 memories to collect. What do the other 2 get you? More dialogue with Nick? Okay, I can get behind that. And the last one is a set of armor that weighs more than a set of T60 power armor? No, I'm done. I'm not wasting any more of my time on this amateur Minecraft map.
I think you already know the answer, Nick. You don't need me to tell you.
Huh. Maybe next time we swing by Arcadia, I'll try to be a little nicer to the old synth. Make up for lost time. Thanks, by the way.
Sorry about that. That was really out of character for me. So, where were we? Oh boy. Ladies, gentlemen, everything in between. Are you familiar with the infamously long cutscenes of the Metal Gear Solid franchise? Don't you just wish you could get a piece of that cinematic action that's taken so much of your game time? Well, you're in luck because Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker allows you to do just that with the use of QuickTime events. Oh, you don't want that. Hey look, Snake has X-ray vision now. Nice! Now, the interactive cutscenes of Peace Walker aren't initially a bad thing, but the actual QTEs are so few and far between you almost never expect them. And the one time you do expect it is actual torture! Yay! Near the end of the game, you're captured by Peace Sentinel, the main enemy organization of Peace Walker, to which you are then interrogated by Dr. Strangelove, who aims to acquire information about the boss's defection. So she tortures you with electric shocks to the chest, and this is where the Killjoy rears its ugly head. You have to mash the top face button to endure the electricity, and my god, this is painful. I don't really know how to express just how difficult this is, but in an attempt to do so, I have timestamps. Okay, from the start of the cutscene, you're given 2 minutes before the first button mashing sequence, which lasts for 10 seconds. After that, you're given just under 1 minute to prepare for the second sequence, which lasts for 15 seconds. After that, you're given 1 minute and 30 seconds to recover for the third and final torture sequence, which requires you to mash the button for 20 seconds straight, and my thumb is on fire! This could very well be a personal thing. After all, I am known among my circle of friends for my horrific button mashing skills. But I feel like this actually makes it worse because they effectively made a part of the game unpassable for some players. And because I know at least one person's gonna start pointing fingers, I'll say it here. Yes, this type of torture scene is nothing new to the Metal Gear Solid franchise. In fact, there's one of a very similar nature in the first MGS. However, not only have I never played the original Metal Gear, but after only a few seconds of research, I found something the original torture sequence has that Peace Walker does not. A submit option. Yes, submitting to your torture alters the ending, but it also allows you to progress through the game if you're having trouble with the torture sequence. In Peace Walker, you have no option. You either win, or you lose. Christ, just throw me into Colonel Volgin's dungeon. I've changed my mind! Put me back! Is it really fair to include a game's core mechanic on a list like this? Probably not, but the problem with said mechanic is that it almost feels like it was designed to work against you. That's right, you guessed it, I'm talking about befriending yokai in the Yokai Watch games. What? Nobody plays Yokai Watch anymore. But it was supposed to be the Pokemon killer, what the hell happened? So for those of you that don't know, in order to recruit a wild yokai onto your team, you have to raise their affinity so that they like you enough to gift you their medal. This can be done a number of ways, but the most reliable way is to give them their favorite food. Problem is, this is an invisible value and you can only use one food item per battle on any enemy yokai. And honestly, this is borderline luck. Now I know there are other ways to raise a yokai's friendliness, but even with those techniques in mind, I never felt a difference. I could have a party full of yokai with the popularity ability and the superstar soul, giving the opposing yokai their favorite food while using the poke mechanic to raise their affection, and even luck out with a heart wisp, and I'm still not guaranteed to get the yokai I want. Now I know a lot of you will probably disagree with this segment, seeing as I'm talking about a main mechanic that you have to deal with for most of the game, but let me try and present my argument. See, the thing about the Yokai Watch games is that they're really not that hard. Well, not the main story at least. So you can very easily get through the story with the yokai you got along the way, whether it's from scripted events or just random yokai you happen to run into. You can also get yokai medals after some select side quests, but some side quests require you to befriend certain yokai to complete, and when you need to find a specific yokai, suddenly the game doesn't feel all that generous. And then there's the legendary yokai. Oh boy! So, legendary yokai are S-rank yokai that can only be obtained when you have the exact set of yokai medals needed to break their seal. And this is especially frustrating when you have to befriend a rare yokai, because on top of having to find these little buggers, you're still at the mercy of the system, and God forbid that yokai happens to have some buddies with them that will want to be your friend even after you completely ignore them. Hello?
I am Robanyan, a robot from the future.
I thought I blocked this number.
State your request clearly. Nothing is impossible for Robanyan.
Please go away.
I'll be back.
How about no? You see my issue now, right? If you have to befriend a specific yokai for a specific reason, it essentially turns into an Easter egg hunt where you're not even guaranteed to keep what you find. And I guess I'll put a disclaimer here. I have not played Yokai Watch free at the time of writing this, so my issues with the previous two games might have been fixed, but that doesn't mean the problem in the former games aren't there. Anyway, I've been dragging on this segment long enough. We've still got number 1. And you know what, before we get to my number 1, let's go over some honorable mentions. Dishonorable mentions? Whatever. Traveling in Kingdom Hearts Gummy Ship is overall boring, but they only last 2 minutes at most, and you eventually gain a warp mod that can completely ignore this travel altogether. Another Kingdom Hearts rep that was considered was the Trickmaster in Wonderland. His weak spot is really annoying to hit without jumping on the furniture, which he can destroy, but the furnishings do come back, so it's just a minor inconvenience at best. Also, fire shooting maracas are 21 and 23. I honestly considered putting both rhythm games on this list because, unlike the other minigames in Rhythm Thief and the Emperor's Treasure, neither of them do a very good job of easing you into the gameplay, and the rhythm you're given to follow really doesn't fit with the music that plays to the point where you could easily fail with no chance of recovery. Hell, the only thing that ultimately saved them from this list is the muscle memory I developed from actual weeks of trying to A-rank the both of them, and even then I'm still prone to fail them at least once. Observer was a psychological horror game that I legitimately enjoyed, but the stealth sections that require you to sneak past the main monster turned the genuine fear I felt into a disgusting puddle of frustration. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment has a dungeon called the CDCD where you can't use your personas. But it's only 5 floors long, you can throw down a rappel before you enter, and its main purpose is for 2 optional bosses. Terror Time from Yokai Watch 2 happens at complete random and took a step back from the original by making the rewards harder to get thanks to the added time limit, and not being able to fight the Oni when you get caught. And finally, the 11 and 12 Tower glitch was my original representative for Pandora's Tower before I decided to not include glitches. All you need to know is that it's near the game's climax, and if you try to enter one of these towers, there's a workaround, but it's still very frustrating. So, while I was scripting this list, I was talking to my dad about all the old games we used to play together, and during that little chat, he reminded me of the reason why I may never be able to finish SOCOM US Navy SEALs. Thanks, Dad. I kind of hoped my first mention of the SOCOM games on this channel would be with something positive, but for now, let's talk about the Prison Break mission. Just like all the other missions in SOCOM, the main objective is stealth, and while getting caught isn't an automatic game over, it's still heavily advised if you want to complete all of your objectives. And for another major reason, which I'll get into later. Your goal is to infiltrate the prison to meet up and escape with your informant, Bazim Makek, codenamed Mr. Pickle. Not making this up. Getting into the prison quietly is much easier said than done. If you alert anyone to your presence, the alarm will sound and security will be heightened, losing your window of opportunity. So you need to create diversion by blowing up a wall, then you climb over the back wall, disable the generator, then grab Mr. Pickle, and this is where the biggest problem with the mission begins. At the beginning of the mission, you're told by your field advisor that you have 15 minutes before the prison helicopter finishes its patrol. Once you restrain Mr. Pickle and he tells you about the intel you need to get, that timer is reduced to 1 minute. So now you need to secure a safe place for Pickle and get the intel from the armory. Where's the armory located exactly? Right next to the distraction you made earlier. So before you can shout grenade, the helicopter arrives and now you have a borderline boss fight on your hands. Now, let me tell you why this quote-unquote boss fight doesn't work. The reason why stealth is so important in the SOCOM games is because of how frail you and your team are. It's not like Metal Gear Solid where you have healing items and multiple ways of dealing with the boss. Getting caught is a punishment because of how easily the enemy can kill you. So when you keep all that in mind, along with the fact that the helicopter is almost completely camouflaged by the night sky, having a boss fight that's designed to rip your team to shreds seems like a really stupid idea, doesn't it? What this boss fight boils down to is you unloading machine gun ammunition into the helicopter, ducking back into the armory, peeking back outside, and hoping you don't lose track of the hind. Rinse, repeat, maybe use Boomer as bait, repeat, and hope the helicopter doesn't glitch out. And you know what the best part is? After you destroy the helicopter, that's not the end of the mission. You still have to clear out the nearby mountain encampment to be able to pass through and get Mr. Pickle to the extraction point. So after all that effort of sneaking into the prison, grabbing the informant, going across the compound full of guards and withstanding a helicopter attack, you can still fail in the end because either you, the informant, or your now crippled team got killed by a random enemy on the final stretch. And that is why this level is my #1 biggest killjoy. Now, before I end this video, I'd like to say one more thing about this level. All of my previous experiences with this level have been on the Insane rank, aka the lowest difficulty level. Even on the lowest difficulty level, this is one of the hardest levels I've ever played in a video game, and if for some reason you think playing this level on easy somehow discredits all the things that I've just said, then I challenge you to beat this level on the Admiral difficulty.